and then we do that thing, and then presumably, like, you know, whatever. All right, we go to the other one. Okay. So, suddenly I'm camera shy. Hi, my name's Zeke. I've been a software developer for 12 years, mostly on the DevOps side of things. But as also a gamer, you know, sometimes I like to play video games, and I like to continue to play video games. So I will be upfront. There are some things that I don't like about this Stop Killing Games initiative. I will agree with Thor that it's badly focused, it's poorly focused, and this isn't the way to fix it. To be very upfront, my belief in this is that it doesn't go nearly far enough. I don't think that because a company has decided to stop supporting a thing that they've sold to any person, a single person, or any number of consumers, or any number of companies, is, well, we've decided not to support this thing anymore. We don't want to sell it anymore. So I guess, fuck you. I don't think that that's the correct answer. This modern era of software, where we have software, is very odd in that, well, we can just shut down the thing, and now you're screwed. Imagine if in the 1800s, your ledger that you kept all of your financials on was just, hey, we're no longer going to print paper, so screw you, I guess. No, you can't just take away my ledger paper if I've already bought it. So, I'm of the belief that there should be a general copyright reform to where once a company has decided to stop selling a thing that they have sold to any person, the entirety of that thing must become public domain so that anyone who has come to rely on that thing is free to continue to rely on that thing. And also, if you're going to stop selling it, it's because it's worthless to you. Now, there's a very small distinction. It's not actually worthless to you. You're stopping selling it because it's not worth what it's costing you. But I would like to make that that to have no distinction. I think that if it's not worth it to you, then it is worthless. And if it's worthless, why not release it to everyone who bought it? Or, because I'm actually advocating for it being in the public domain, why not make it public? So I don't need to soapbox any more than that, because there's actually like a 7-hour rant behind that. But that's where I'm coming from, and I still don't like where this Stop Killing Games is. But also, Thor, Mr. Pirate Software, has some hilariously bad takes, and I want to add my voice to the conjecture here.
Hi, my name is Jason Thor Hall, also known as Pirate Software, and the other day I put out a video called Stop Killing Games.
By the way, Mr. Jason Thor Hall there, way more comfortable living out in public than I am. I'm Zeke, and that's all that you're going to get about me.
Saying why I would not support the initiative. Overall, it was actually quite positive. The analytics on it show that people really think it's a good idea. There's a huge amount of like ratio, and I received hundreds of comments from developers thanking me for putting it out because they can't speak publicly while they're at a business or a job elsewhere. A lot of the times, major...
By the way, I'm not speaking out as part of my business either. Oops, I did the amateur thing. Oh right, he's in that corner. Shoo-whoop-a-doop. These views are not the views of my employer, which is why I have not introduced who my employer is, because they don't care. They actually probably would care, but
companies will fire you if you are speaking out of turn and cause a PR disaster for those companies. And since this is such a popular thing among players, most devs aren't going to say anything to you. So I am. So let's discuss the most common requirement of the initiative, which is games have to be left in a functional, playable state. Now, what happens if that game is a online-only live service game? Well, if you want that to stay in a functional playable state, that means the devs have to release either server binaries or somehow carve off the game to be a single-player experience now. Some way to keep it functional and playable, right? Now, many of you are requesting, yes, I should get the server binaries so that I can go and make private servers for this.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make a lot of sense in the real world. And the reason why is because it leaves developers open to abuse. So let's...
I have pre-watched this first point, so I'm giving you inauthentic reactions, but this is exactly what I was doing the first time here.
Let's explore that a little bit. Let's say that you made your own video game, and you made a live service game. Maybe it's an MMO, maybe it's something else, right? And let's say that I want to monetize that game, but you don't allow monetization of the game by any other party. This makes sense because most creators don't allow for that. You can't just take someone else's art and profit off of it. Normal, right? So then I go, well, how am I going to force you to do this? Under this initiative, you would have to release the server binaries or keep the game...
I clicked on the volume. Now I can't scrabble by
do this.
arrow keys.
Under this initiative, it doesn't make a lot of sense in the real world. And the reason why is because it leaves developers open to abuse.
Okay.
So let's explore that a little bit.
Thank you.
Let's say that you made your own video game, and you made a live service game. Maybe it's an MMO, maybe it's something else, right? And let's say that I want to monetize that game, but you don't allow...
I don't appreciate where this is going. This isn't a good point. It's weird to be like, "Oh, I'm going to be the one that monetizes your game. I'm going to make money off of your game." That's weird.
Monetization of the game by any other party.
This is a weird hypothetical.
This makes sense because most creators don't allow for that. You can't just take someone else's art and profit off of it. Normal.
I mean, yes.
So then I go, well, how am I going to force you to do this? Under this initiative, you would have to release the server binaries or keep the game in a functional playable state at end of life. So I hit you with a ton of bots. I hit you with a ton of exploits. I attack your community. I destroy your Reddit. I go after your business. I go everywhere that I possibly can to make this cost as much as it possibly can for you. And it's not hard to do this. We saw the exact same thing happen in TF2 recently. The massive amount of bots that were attacking the game. This is not infeasible. This is something that is very easily attainable today. And let's say that this goes on long enough that your game dies because you can't afford it anymore. Okay. So I'm very sorry to the random game developer that someone has decided to make you to make you the place where they make their political stand, even if their political stand has nothing to do with you, like the people who are cementing themselves to roads. What does that have to do to about normal consumers? They think the people who are cementing themselves to the road think that it's because they're trying to stop petroleum, but also it's just people trying to get to work or trying to get to the grocery store or whatever. So these people who are trying to make a political statement are impacting people who are like, why is this is politics? You've glued yourself to the road for politics? So yes, you're right. There are weirdos in the world that will try to take you down, who will try to they're gonna throw bots at you. They're going to try to exploit your game. They're going to destroy your community. But that already is happening. That already happens. You can't tell me that Blizzard maintaining World of Warcraft isn't already fighting off bots. You can't tell me that EA... It's EA that owns Battlefield, right? I can't play first-person shooters. I get motion sick. So you can't tell me that EA isn't already fighting off bots and exploits from people who are trying to take down the Battlefield servers. Maybe just because they lost a match and that made them angry and, I want to ruin the game for everyone else. Or the weirdos who were like, Battlefield's a bad game and EA's a bad company. I'm sorry, but it already happens, and I'm sure that Mr. Thor here, who's running his own Minecraft server that he says that he made an MMO. It's a Minecraft server. It's not massively at all. It's just multiplayer, but I'm sure that he is already dealing with bots and exploits and people who maybe he bans. And then go and post in a Reddit or something, I got banned from the thing, it's unfair,
right? This is already happening. So I'm sorry that there's going to be yet another thing that bots and exploits are going to be used to try to take you down. I'm sorry that your creative endeavor has to be weighed down by the practicalities of reality. But it does. It always has. There has always been hard realities to making a video game. There have always been, and especially for a multiplayer game, there have always been, I have the costs of the server to maintain. There have always been, I need to be keeping up to date with my OS updates. I need to be keeping up to date with security patches, security in general. Right? So, yes, I'm sorry that you have to exist in the real world. But you do. So this isn't an argument. Oh, now there's going to be an incentive that because as soon as the game is taken offline, then you're required by law to make the server binary available. There's already people trying to take you down. And Thor, as an admitted goblin lord, as we all know, already knows that it's that the incentive of just doing it for the lulz is way more enticing for random internet weirdos than, oh, I get the server exe when their company folds. No, taking it down for the lulz is already a better incentive. So this whole argument, I almost want to fast forward to the next one because it's absolute nonsense. This is a bad argument, and it's dumb that he keeps on leading with this argument. Stop it. You have better arguments to take down this Stop Killing Games initiative on its own. Lead with those. Okay.
And your studio has to shut down. At end of life, you now have to release those server binaries to keep the game in a functional playable state. At which point I take those, I create a private server, and I monetize it. And some people have said, well, simply don't allow monetization of the server. Well, who's going to enforce that? If you want a government initiative to enforce that, that means the government has to build a registry of all of those games.
He's now strawmanning
and all of that
the thing
intellectual
that he
property
just brought up
that
all
shouldn't
on
be
his own.
monetized. And then
Once again,
somehow enforce that.
I
with
watched
no
a
one owning
video
it
that I almost
because their
reacted to.
studios have
Here,
shut down. That's going to be a massive
do this so that
On
I can
top
talk
of that,
over
if you
him.
want to go the other route and say the company has to go and
I watched a video
what
from
if the
someone
company's not
who I
running?
didn't need to react
Is that
to
just
because it was an
able to
hour
be
long and I'd
monetized
turn it
now?
into 3
Yeah.
hours.
This was obtained through abuse of the original
Where
creator. I don't think that's a good
where
route.
he
And the
fast
scenario
forwarded
gets
and I
even
got
worse
annoyed because
if
it was
you
like
do
you're
allow
missing
monetization.
part of the
Because
point
now I
that
can
Thor is
just
trying to
kill off
make
your
here
company and then
by
monetize the
skipping
server
over
and
some
no
of the
one will
some of
have
the
that.
points.
Now
So
it's even more of a
I'm
problem. So
I'm not
another
going to skip
monetization
over
of
it.
this work
We're going to
is
see the whole thing.
significantly worse. And for those of
This
you
is
out there that say,
transformative,
"Oh,
by the
this
way,
can be
for any
done right
DMCA
now, I
bots
could
out
just
there.
destroy your studio and take
So-
your stuff anyway." You could, but this allows
We're
a
going to have to
route
go
for
through the
it
rest of this bad
legally
argument.
to do so. That's the problem. After putting this out publicly and talking to people about it, this specific scenario on both YouTube and Discord and Reddit and a bunch of other locations, I got a couple of takes back. We're going to start with the most extreme position and kind of go from there. So, in the most extreme, people said live service games shouldn't exist at all, and the initiative will kill them off for good, and that's a good thing.
Nah.
Well, you don't get
This is a good
to define
take.
what players get to play or not play.
Yep.
You also shouldn't be able to get to define what developers build or don't build.
Yep.
You should not have creative control over the developers, and
Absolutely.
you should not have control over what is in my Steam library or on my phone.
Yep.
That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Aside from that, the initiative does not purport to kill live service games. It would just make it incredibly difficult to build said games and add a lot of risk to it, which is why I'm bringing all of this.
I don't know that it does. I haven't gone and read the actual initiative itself because I don't think it goes. I have only been introduced to Thor's very biased view and overview of it. I have very little interest in actually going and looking at it because I'm not an EU citizen, and also it from just the very little bit that I have seen from these videos, it's not interesting. It's very bad. It will literally go nowhere, but it's great Reddit fodder.
Up and why I don't support the initiative in the first place. A lot of people don't realize that this will slowly diminish live service games in the market because
I don't know that it'll do
it's
that.
not an incentive for us to build them anymore. Which
There. What do you mean there isn't an incentive to build live? there didn't need to be an incentive to build the first live service game. Once again, to go back to a point that I don't know that I hammered on well enough as part of my debunking of this whole point. If you're making a creative endeavor, part of the creative endeavor, there's broad consensus about this. I'm gonna make a very bold statement here. There's broad consensus that the limitations that are imposed upon you, or that you impose upon yourself as part of that creative endeavor, are what make the work of art interesting. So, if there's another thing that is imposed upon you because you're making a live service game, you were already taking on the challenge of making a live service game. This extra requirement that, okay, well, at the end of life, you need to make it possible for a community to continue it on, is not going to greatly impact the world.
Which means you get less multiplayer live experiences.
I don't think
that
so.
Sucks. I like live service games. I enjoy playing things like Final Fantasy XIV. I enjoy going and playing in games in the past, at least, like League of Legends. These are games that are live service. They require a live service to run.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be able to take that away from people. And
what do you mean take it away from people? No one is taking it away from you, from people. The fact that, okay, the day that Riot decides, all right, we're done with League of Legends, we're done with the toxicity or whatever, we just don't want to anymore, so no, we're shutting it down. They just, as far as I can understand, the Stop Killing Games initiative is, okay, here's the server binary, you do whatever with it now. We're done, goodbye. I don't think that goes far enough, as I've already said. I think that it needs to be public domain. But if, as your last act, you release a final build that has no restrictions, just, all right, if you bought it, here's server.exe, here's client.exe. You bought it, you own it, whatever, goodbye. We're going to move on to next venture. That's what it sounded like it was to me, which is meh. It's very meh to me.
Only position on this, not only are you disingenuous in what the initiative is purporting to try and achieve, but you're also aggressively attacking other.
I don't know that this is that the Stop Killing Games initiative is being disingenuous about that. I do think that he's being disingenuous about other things. And this is about to where I've pre-watched to, so I don't know if he's going to bring up the slideshow of the slideshow bullet points, but we could talk about that afterwards.
Instead of trying to fix something. So the next one is that this is about games preservation, and that it needs to happen to preserve these types of games for future generations and for everyone to always have forever. But I would argue that this isn't actually preserving these games.
Maybe
social games, such as, let's say, Apex Legends, require a number of players to be in the match at the same time so that you can have an experience that is only able to be obtained through lots of players interacting.
Okay, so this is the same argument as stage shows going, no, we can't commit a video reproduction of the stage show to film and then people watch that. No. The live stage performance is the performance. To cheapen it by putting it on a DVD and people put the DVD into their DVD player and go, this was Pippin. It's not Pippin. Pippin is the live experience, and every night it changes very subtly, and every troupe will perform it differently. That is the show. No. The only reason that we know about the greatness of Shakespeare is because people smuggled his scripts out after the performance. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't know the history of live stage performances in English. Do we appreciate Shakespeare in the same way that they did in the 1400s or 1600s, whenever Shakespeare was actually alive? I don't have those dates down. No, we don't. We don't go into literally the Ring Theater and watch as Queen Elizabeth I is up there also watching this performance of these weird paupers saying lines that everyone would generally understand. No, we make it a high school reading requirement, and it's just for weirdos that go to, oh, I'm going to go to the Shakespeare Festival. So no, we enjoy Shakespeare differently now, and that's not bad. Similarly, wanting to play a live service game 5 years after it's been shut down, knowing that it will be a different experience, is not bad. It is, in fact, valid. So yes, games preservation is valid. And even a game that is multiplayer and is played by multiple people okay, so the crew shut down. If Ubisoft just published server.exe and then someone who bought the crew goes, man, I remember the crew. I'm gonna fire up the server and I'm gonna play a race. And they go and they race in a completely empty world. There's no bots because they never implemented bots. I don't know. I'm completely theorizing. They go and they race in a completely empty world, and it's weird. And the player is just like, this. The driving experience is neat, and I still love the feel of it. I love looking at these cars. I love looking at the graphics of it, even if it's dated. But also, it's weirdly silent in here, and that's different from what it felt like playing it back in the day when everyone was online, when there was that one asshole that would always clip you or whatever the experience was. It's okay for the experience to be different. And also, it's not like it will always be different. If there's a Discord of people who are like, who love the crew, and they declare like, all right, shutdown day of the crew, July 18th, everyone be here or be square. We're going to fire up the server. All 100 of us are gonna jump in, and we're just gonna play the crew all day long, and it won't be the same as launch week, but they'll still have fun with a game that they bought, or at least they understood that they bought it. So this bass-ackwards take of like, oh no, online video games are a moment in time, and the experience is ephemeral, and it can never be captured again. That's not an argument. Stop it. People buy the DVDs to Wicked so that they can watch Wicked again. Not because, oh, this is the experience of Wicked, but because going out to New York to watch the Broadway performance of Wicked is even more special than watching the DVD. It's okay.
Right? It's a multiplayer game. You need a bunch of people. How many of you have felt negatively when an MMO dies? Or when a live service game dies? Oh, dead game. There's only 5 people online. Why would I play that? So why would you want to preserve a game in that state? That doesn't make any sense to me. You want
Ridiculous.
To take down these live service
explained.
games, put them up on a private server, and then play it with a couple of people. You're not bringing it back at its height. You're not taking a snapshot of what the game actually is. You're making it limp on in a way.
So the only alternative, Mr. Thor, is people can only relive the video game in the Wikipedia summary. People can only relive the crew in watching streamer VODs. That's the only way that you can remember video games is by going and watching, oh, I remember streamer played the crew. I'm going to go and watch all 80 hours of the VODs of streamer playing the crew. This is it. This is the experience that I wanted. No! you crazy nitwit. Even if a Discord just pulls together a couple hundred players or 50 players, or even if the community is tiny, if it's just a Discord of 2 people, and one of those people's like, I'm going to fire up the server. You want to hop in? Yeah, that'd be great. Why do you want to stop them having fun with a thing they bought? Ridiculous.
It doesn't make any sense. That's not preservation. And for those that may stop there...
No. We should burn all the copies of Shakespeare. All of those copies of Shakespeare, no. The 1400s is over. You're not experiencing Shakespeare the way that Queen Elizabeth did, because it's over now. So burn it. Burn Shakespeare.
But private server's going to have a lot of players. Look at all the ones for World of Warcraft. Again, we talked about that. It opens up a route for abuse of the developers, so that is not a solution.
Abuse of the developer is not an excuse. As I've already said, I'm very sorry that you have to deal that you, dear game developer, have to deal with the reality of the game that you've decided to make in reality. Oh.
And the last take that I got from this is, and it's the most reasonable to me, this is an initiative. It's not a law. Why are you upset? Just wait. I'm not going to wait. And the reason I'm not going to wait...
This is Thor is correct on this. The community is incorrect on this. I may just have to
It's because I see the start of this conversation not making sense. It's not including the actual developer side of the conversation. It's not showing the trials and problems that this could arise inside of the gaming industry for people who are actually making the games you play. I don't have any reason to be quiet about that. And many other developers aren't going to be able to speak on this. As I explained before, it's really easy to lose your job if you're working at a major studio and try to speak out of turn on something like this, especially with something people are so passionate about. Doesn't make any sense to stay quiet. And it also doesn't make any sense to wait until it's in a different form when I see that it has so many problems with the language as it is currently written. Mm-hmm. I should be able to be talking about this. In fact, I should be talking about this. I am a content creator specifically...
Yeah, we're okay.
We're just a game developer that has worked in this industry for 20 years. This is my wheelhouse. This is what I do. So for those who are calling for me to just be silent and sit in the corner, no. With all of that being said, I do think there's a consumer protection thing that we can fix here. It's just not really what the initiative is about. I think that if you're going to buy a live service game, you shouldn't be told you're buying the game. You shouldn't be told that you're purchasing the game.
Now, I also agree with this. If you're buying a live service game, you're not buying a live service game. The button should not say buy. The button should say rent until Mr. Publisher decides it's too expensive now.
You should be told explicitly that you are purchasing a license to that game.
But also, there has been no shift in consensus. Every consumer actually thinks that they are buying a copy of the thing. This idea that they're buying a license to the thing is only a neat legal trick from the last 40 years. No one actually understands this 1-2 legal gotcha of I thought that I was buying the thing, but I didn't buy the thing? I don't want to have to put in an edit point, but I may have to go and get...
Reason why is because that license needs to be revoked anytime that you are cheating at the game and damaging the play experience of other players. While this is written in the TOS and the EULA, it's usually not clearly defined at point of sale. Or they throw a giant TOS in front of you and it doesn't really do anything because people skip past it. If at point of...
The exact same way that Thor skipped past the TOS for Helldivers, but also you could skip past the TOS for Helldivers. And you could also skip past the linking of the account in Helldivers. So I don't think that the company can pull a bait and switch on you after purchase of the game. If it looks like you have bought a copy of the game and it runs like you have bought a copy of the game, and then at a later date company goes, psych, it was a license. No. Consumer protections should kick in. And I'm And I'm Mr. Don't you dare make the government bigger.
Sale, it says specifically, there's specific language stating that you are either leasing or purchasing a license or anything along those lines, that you're not actually buying the game directly. I think it would go a long way to informing consumers of what they're doing and protect them from some of these business practices that they didn't realize they were engaging in. That makes a lot more sense to me than force all developers to leave the game in a functional, playable state. And that.
Okay. I had an internship at a company where we weren't actually building healthcare software. We were building healthcare adjacent software. So we didn't actually have to abide by all of the healthcare regulations. But what we did have to do was every release, every single point release of this Java server that we made, as part of, okay, we're going to build the Java binary and then we're going to hand it off to professional services to get it integrated into all of the hospitals and doctors' offices that use the thing. The other thing that we had to do was we had to go and create a zip of the source code at that point in time, and we had to upload it to an escrow service because all of the hospitals that used our thing did not want to get caught with their pants down if our company went bankrupt. This is where my idea came from, that everything should go public domain once you stop selling it. As soon as you stop selling it, it should become public domain, and as part of your release process for every single deployment that you do, you should go and pull all of the deletions from your source control and upload it to an escrow service. That should be part of the requirement of being a business. If you are making a service that is taking open user signups, if you one day shut down and if that user depends on your service, even if it's just a recipe thing, I want to be able to run my own recipes, my own recipe server. I don't want to have to migrate my data into another thing. I should get your server code or your server. I think I should get your server binary. I think the logical extension of Stop Killing Games is that you get the server binary. I think that that's dumb, but whatever. I think that there should be an escrow account that holds all of the code that's no longer current. And then when you go out of business, here you go. It's all public now.
That's about it. That's all I really wanted to talk about with this. I hope that's clarified some things for some of you and some of the dangers that this can cause as it is currently written. If you're still mad about this, not much I can do about it. Outside of that, I'm going to be gone for the next 4 days, so if you expect me to respond or anything like that and you think I'm ducking the issue or hiding in some way, I'm not. I'm just in Vegas because there's DEF CON going on, which is a hacking convention, and it's the first vacation I've had in 5 years. I can't wait to see my friends out there. So with that in mind, see y'all later.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and do part one.
My name is Jason Thor Hall, also known as Pirate Software Online. I've been in the gaming industry for about 20 years. I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment, then Amazon Game Studios, and now I own my own studio, Pirate Software, by the same name, which is an indie studio, and I've been here for about 8 years now. I also run a massive community. We've got about 180,000 people in Discord, and most of what I do is try to teach other people how to make games, teach them that they can make games, show them the tools to do so, and try to do everything without any paywalls or bullshit in the way. It's incredibly important to me that we keep making games and that the next generation has the tools to do so that our medium doesn't die out. And it never will. And that's the whole intention of all of this.
Okay.
So with that in mind, that community brought me
preamble.
This and tried to get me to sign it. And I don't want to. Number one, I can't because I don't live in Europe. But number two, I wouldn't sign it even if I could.
Good takes on both accounts. Also not European, and also this is lulz.
And I'm going to kind of go through this and try to explain the reasoning as to why that would be the case, without all of the internet hate machine that's grown up around it. So let's go into how this works and why this is an issue to me. First things first, what is an initiative? So an initiative is actually not law. It is something that you put together so you can put it up in front of representatives and they can start the conversation. The reason why I have a problem with Stop Killing Games is specifically it starts the conversation. If we're trying to kill off the practice...
So I watched a video from, I'm sure he was very nice. I believe he was Scottish, from a very nice Scottish person who was reacting to this same video. And it seemed like it, and also from the bit from whoever Ross later on going on in here, it seems like the way that Europeans believe that their laws work is that they create these initiatives, and then if the initiative gains enough traction, then it goes on to where the politicians bring in lobbyists and they hash out a law, and then they pass the law. But also, you're dumb if you think that the lobbyists they bring in are going to actually end up writing a law that's anything representative of what the initial initiative looks like. Because you know where those lobbyists come from, right? The industry, which is going to be the video game industry. Hilarious. Just hilarious. Well,
of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single player experience, and then taking away support in the future. This ain't it.
Correct.
And the reason why is specifically on this initiative, under its own description, it says this initiative calls to require.
Oh, did we do the thing again where it's gonna? No. Oh, this is 14.4. Nope, that didn't make it any clearer. Okay, cool. Well, whatever.
Publishers that sell or license video games to consumers in the European Union or related features and assets sold for video games they operate to leave said video games in a functional playable state.
Okay. As far as language goes, that's fairly good, fairly technical, fairly in-depth language. So all of you lollers out there, all of you lollerpeans, we're going to have to workshop that, out there who are like, oh, this is just an initiative. It's written in plain language that are spoken by the people. Not that paragraph. It's got all kinds of addendums in there. They sell or license video games to consumers, or related features, and the assets that are sold for video games that they operate. Also, video games is two words. It's not video games. It's not video games.
Specifically, the initiative seeks to prevent the remote disabling of video games by the publishers before providing reasonable means to continue functioning of said video games without the involvement from the side of the publisher. This isn't always possible in all video games, and it doesn't call out the specific practice that this is supposedly trying to defeat. It is incredibly vague and will damage all live service games.
Also it is
How
possible.
Would you keep League of Legends in a functional playable state?
I don't know. Maybe you would just publish the Docker containers. Or maybe it's not maybe they haven't Dockerized their workload. You publish all the binaries. I'm not asking for an export of the Confluence for how to get the binaries started. Go ahead, reverse engineer the thing if you want. Just as far as this stop killing or stop destroying video games initiative, if that's what you're going for, I think that's workable. Yeah, is it going to end up in a lot of malicious compliance where all video games from here on are monstrous disasters to get started? Yeah, but also hello, I'm a developer. Specifically, I work in the DevOps field, which means that I have to run all of the shitty services that developers end up developing. And getting those monstrosities to run is thousands of lines of code. Even if it's just YAML files, sometimes those YAML files have Jinja in them, and sometimes those YAML files have Go templates in them. And when you cross across from, oh, this was a YAML file that's going to get interpreted by a Jinja parser. Oh, this is a YAML file that's going to get interpreted by a Go interpreter. I don't even remember where I started from.
Have to re-architect the entire game. The game is what is called client server. So in client server models,
this is a bad faith argument.
There's a client and all of the
Mr. Pirate Software is unfortunately the Mr. Rogers of the software development and programming on Twitch/YouTube space. He's a very nice gentleman, and he's very positive, and he's there to get people to like, you can do it, you can build video games, I believe in you. But also, because he's used to having to reduce it down to the most basic building blocks, I think that that's the switch that flipped in his brain of like, okay, so hold on, now you're going to take so the initiative requires that you take a multiplayer game and you make it a single player game? As an engineer who would implement the simplest possible solution to this, which is not how laws get written, by the way, but I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt and working engineer to engineer. If I read this RFC, the way that I would implement it is, all right, here's the server binary. Go have fun.
All of the game, everything happens on the server. The client just displays it. And the reason we want to do it that way is so that you can't teleport around and do 1 billion damage. You don't trust the client. You trust the server. The client just displays what it's told. Right?
What does that have to do with
this? So if we wanted to re-architect this, we'd have to take all of that server logic, push it back out into the client, and somehow make that playable in a multiplayer-only video game. That doesn't make sense to me. So this isn't going to work for all games. It doesn't make sense to me either. Why is it calling out?
But also, you just strawman
and it's really easy to say, like, oh, that'll get worked out down the line. But we're dealing with government here.
Yes.
If we're going to be putting up these types of ideas.
But also, it doesn't help when you strawman an argument out of thin air. But also, I agree. If you expect that politicians are going to bring in industry lobbyists and the law that's going to get proposed from your initiative is going to look anything like your initiative, or even what a reasonable engineer would expect would get written from your initiative, you are hilariously wrong.
Specifically in front of government, we need to be calling out the right issues, especially if you don't have precedent set. Because now you're going to be set.
And now, from the video that I watched of the very nice Scottish gentleman, who might be a Lollerpian, whatever. There's this thing in America where we have a Congress that's is it Congress or is it no it's Congress, because it's split into two bodies, the House and the Senate. Okay, so there's a Congress which is largely ineffective nowadays. They write hilariously. They don't write. They get passed to them over the dinner that the lobbyists are paying for. They get passed to them a stack of papers and just like, this is the law that we want you to present on the floor, and then they do, and then 24 hours later they just vote yes, because they got millions of dollars put into their bank account. And then, because it's all weird industry doublespeak, legalese, they've got 1 million Swiss cheese holes in there for all of their own little, for the industry lobbyists' little cutouts that they wanted to screw over all of their competitors. Then you have to take this law, which is 1,000 pages and just Swiss cheese. You have to take that to the court, and now 2 companies are going to duke it out, or a company is going to sue the government and they're going to duke it out, or a state's going to sue a company based off of this law, and they're going to find out that, oh, there was a loophole that was put in there for exactly this case. Whoopsie daisies. And this is where the precedent argument comes in. This is how all law in America actually works, is that the law gets passed, and then over several decades, cases get brought before the courts, and then the way that the courts interpret the law becomes what's generally accepted what the law means. Because we live in chaos land where our government doesn't actually work for us. But also, dear Europeans, you're hilarious if you think yours does.
Setting precedent on something that doesn't make any sense with people that may not understand the nuance of our.
You have laws regulating how many feathers go into your pillow. You're hilarious if you think that your government is working for your benefit.
Our industry, all in the name of saving games. I can't agree with that. So let's go into why this is happening, right? So why did this start in the first place? What is the specific cases they've called out that are egregious? And they have one. It's the Crew. So action on the Crew.
And this is really unfortunate. Ooh, I paused on a real weird frame. This is really unfortunate that the one on the main page is the Crew. I understand. I did watch a Prime video from where he went into an FAQ and they had a whole list of like 6 games. Ooh, in one of the sections of the FAQ. But the Crew is an unfortunate example of Ubisoft doing Ubisoft things. I think that there's very good grounds that consumers could take Ubisoft to court and win a lot of things because the Crew
video game
seems
The
like
Crew
it was done very badly in terms of doing good things for the consumer, especially if that consumer is European.
Published by Ubisoft, was recently destroyed for all players and had a player base of at least 12 million people. Due to the game's size and France's strong consumer protection laws, this represents one of the best opportunities to hold a publisher accountable for this action. If we're successful...
Yeah, fuck businesses, companies. How dare they? How dare they build a thing that we bought? How dare?
Charges being pressed against Ubisoft, this can have a ripple effect on the video games industry to prevent...
I think this is the first time I mentioned this in this rant now. This whole Stop Killing Games initiative page, website thing is riddled with these weasel words. Stop saying it can have a ripple effect. If you sue a company and win, it will have ripple effects. Don't, oh, it might, maybe.
Prevent publishers from destroying more games. First off, I don't like the idea in this that it has a player base of 12 million people.
This is correct.
That is not how long-running games work. There is a large number of people that buy the game, and that player base slowly dwindles off until nobody is playing it anymore. If there's any costs associated with keeping the game online, which this was an online video game, then eventually it costs more to keep it online than it does to keep running it.
Very true.
So the cost outweighs the amount of income for it. There are bad business practices.
And then when they stopped... They shut down the servers because the game was worth less than it was making for them.
Practices that can occur in there. There are companies that will sell a online-only game as a single-player experience and kind of just put it into the TOS and hide it. But not all companies do that. When they do, we should be calling out that specific company, not all companies. So let's take a look at this and find out more about the Crew itself. And if we pull up their Wikipedia, we can see that the Crew was actually created in 2014, which, much to the hatred of all the oldies on the internet, was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So this was an online-only racing video game developed by Ubisoft Ivory Tower and Ubisoft Reflections.
I honestly don't know why we're reading so much of this Wikipedia page.
With that in mind, it said it was a scaled-down recreation of the contiguous United States and included both role-playing and large-scale multiplayer elements.
Okay, why did we have to read contiguous United States?
So it had a massive multiplayer component to it.
Yeah, it does. I don't think that anyone is debating the part that all of this is to try to make games that have online components playable after the video game maker or the publisher moves on.
It is an online-only...
This is yapping.
Service-based game. And they shut it down 10 years later.
Oh my gosh, how great of them.
On March 31st, 2024, Ubisoft shut down the game's servers, rendering the game unplayable, which is normal for
why?
Live service games. The only thing that I can see in here that could be a problem is if they post it as not an online-only experience. But everything that I found online shows that the game was always marketed as online-only. If you're going to be buying an online-only game,
what difference does that
means
make?
It can only run when it's online. And
Okay. We're not arguing about the fact that, I bought a video game and it doesn't work when it doesn't... So when I was a very small child, I was gifted for Christmas a Star Wars game. And this Star Wars game was called The Old Republic. And my dad was very excited, like, hey, I know that you like video games, and also Star Wars is video games, so here's a video game. And I was like, oh, this looks great. And then I read the back of the box, and it said, oh, an online subscription is required, and also you have to be online. And we still had, did we have dial-up at that point, or did we have cable? But anyway, my computer at the other end of the house was not always on the Wi-Fi, and also online games was not a thing at that point in the house growing up. But we're not debating that. We're not debating like, oh, having a game where you have to be online. That's not the debate here. We're not debating about, oh, you sold a video game that doesn't have an offline component. No, that's not what we're talking about here.
If the servers need to shut down in the future,
this is
far
yapping.
in the future, it makes sense to me for the access to that game to be cut.
Why?
If it's online only. If it's a single player experience that has online only functionality specifically just to shut down the game in the future, and the online only doesn't actually add any gameplay function.
I also don't believe this argument. I don't know how many companies are going, we're going to build a single player experience that we're going to tie to a multiplayer server so that we can shut it down in 10 years. No, I think that genuinely they're going, we're going to build a single player game. It's going to have it, but it's going to have like neat multiplayer interactions. And that will be great for players. End of thought. And then 10 years later, a bean counter goes, I noticed this line item here on the AWS bill that says that there's an EC2 server running. What's that for? How old is that game? How many players are on that? Why are we still paying for that? Can we just shut that down? That'll save us $600 a month. I think that's what's happening. I don't think there's any actual malicious... There might be in some of the more extreme, like mobile microtransactions cases, but I genuinely don't think that companies are intentionally planning to build a game so that they can shut it down in the future. I think that if it was free, they'd leave it up, but also it's not going to be free because you're always going to have to rebuild the thing to pick up security updates, and then you're going to have to deploy the updates, and also you're going to have to deploy into a staging environment to make sure that any of the OS updates didn't accidentally break one of the dynamic links, or a .so didn't get loaded, or if you're doing Windows, it's a DLL the VC redist didn't happen correctly, or something like that. And then you're going to have to get an engineer involved in redeploying this game that only has 50 players on a server that you're paying $40 a month, $600 a month. As soon as there's an RDS instance and an EBS volume, and your configuration is coding, and your Terraform bill is $4,000 a month. Not the Terraform bill, obviously, but the AWS config charges or whatever.
I'd agree with you. That's a shitty business practice, but that's really rare. And in the specific cases where it does happen,
There's another point in time where he says that, oh, this business practice is rare. The building an online game that is mostly single player is really rare. I don't know that that's really rare, and also I don't know that that's valid. I don't care how many single player games have a multiplayer component that breaks the whole game or part of the game when the server gets shut down. As I have already stated, video games as a creative product are valid for preserving, even though preserving means that it will be different. Strawberry preserve is different from strawberries, but they're both good.
Should call out
That's a terrible
that,
analogy.
Not just all games and not all live service games. There's more context to this too. The Crew itself came out in 2014, but it actually had a sequel that came out in 2018, and then it had another sequel that came out in 2023. And if we go to the Crew's SteamDB, which again is not...
Oh, Oh, no, no, dear consumer, no. It's okay that we're shutting down the crew's servers. You can buy the crew too. There's no way that they could make the crew 2 worse. There's no way that the new Battlefield, even though it's more impressive, just doesn't feel as good as the old Battlefields. And is that nostalgia talking? I don't know. I can't go and check because they shut down the servers. This is why I like my initiative, the everything must go public domain as soon as you stop selling it, because now every company that's producing a new version of their thing has to compete with their former greatness. Why does the new Battlefield suck? Because they don't have to compete with any of the previous Battlefields. Because they can just shut it down. They can shut down the matchmaking. If all of the players were like, no, this Battlefield, I don't know any of the Battlefields because once again, I can't play FPSs. I get motion sick. If all of the players just stayed on one of the older Battlefields because, no, it's fine. It plays better. The gunplay is better. It's more satisfying than, oh, look, there's a typhoon and it destroys the building and the level changes dynamically. But shooting guns doesn't feel good. The movement doesn't feel good. If you screw up a core part of the new game, but your players have the recourse to, hey, y'all, we're going to, we know a guy who knows how to run servers and is willing to pay for the bandwidth. We can all chip in like $4. Come on, everyone. $4. We're all going to pile in this Discord. We're keeping the old Battlefield alive. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want EA to have to compete with their former greatness?
Not going to be all of the player base for this. It's only going to show the ones who were playing it through Steam. It was on multiple platforms. We look at the max here. It did start out with a sizable amount of community, and then it degraded. And it had a major drop-off in 2018, which is the same year.
Yeah. To all of the Europeans out there who are like, yeah, you if you put out a sequel and people move to the new one, that's bad for the consumer. As an American, get that bag. If you have people who are trained to consume product and get ready for next product, take their money. Either they will just die poor, or they will learn financial management. They will learn how to manage their finances. But also, for the discerning consumer that goes, they're making a Crew 3? Man, I remember how good the Crew was. I'm going to fire up the Crew and the server and go play. Yeah, it's going to be empty, but like, I remember how good that game was. And you get all the enjoyment you need out of that, and then you don't have to buy Crew 3? I'm okay with that.
That it launched a sequel. This is normal. When a sequel comes out, a lot of the player base, if the sequel doesn't suck, will move over to it. And then the servers effectively die.
And get ready for next
you
product.
You can't run a live service game on this few players.
Correct.
You can't.
You absolutely
most
cannot.
Most of the time, especially not if there's anything else that goes into it. And if we go into that anything else, and we could see that...
As I already talked about, you're spending all of the CI time to build another build of the thing, to pick up all of the OS updates, to make sure that, and you're paying for some bot, whether it's a Renovate bot or the GitHub Auto, whatever the bot is, to automatically update your dependencies, hope that you have enough tests to make sure that it's green so that you're not going to crowd strike yourself, and then deploy it into a staging environment, which you have to pay for. And then after that, you're going to blue-green the server to load balance 50 players into the new server. And then when it doesn't go right, you're going to bring in a DevOps person to go, why didn't it work? I have no idea. This code is shit. Okay, we're going to get a developer in here. Okay, why did this go wrong? Oh, it's because the API changed. It was breaking change. Now I got to go and fix the thing. Now you're paying someone's salary to fix a game for a security update that is only going to be enjoyed by 50 people. No. Businesses are allowed to shut things down when they get too expensive. That EC2 instance, the RDS instance backing it, all of the user authentication, all of that crap is costing more than those 50 players, even if they keep buying all the skins, is worth. Let companies shut it down. Just say, here's the server binary. Go away. We don't want you anymore. You edit this line in the config file to whatever your new server address is. Bye. We don't want to talk to you anymore.
License
We're making
problems.
the Crew 3.
So on December 14th, 2023, Ubisoft delisted the Crew and its expansions from digital platforms, suspended sales of microtransactions, and announced that the game's servers would shut down on March 31st. So they gave them 3 months. Usually I would say, hey, 6 months is probably a better deal.
Oh, very good, Thor. Thank you for deigning to give the poors another 3 months. Because 6 months is better than 3 months. You know what's better than 6 months, though? 12 months. You know what's better than 12 months? Forever. Your argument doesn't stand. This is a bad argument. Cut this argument out of the video because it's a bad argument.
But if they're going to do 3 months, they're going to do 3 months. The only thing that I'd be interested outside of that is if there was a contractual obligation to do more than 3 months and they didn't follow it, if it was in the terms of service or not. Citing up.
Take them to court if there is. But if there's no court case that comes out of it, who cares?
Upcoming server infrastructure and licensing constraints. What were those?
As I've already explained, the server infrastructure very definitely costs. The licensing constraints, though, this is where we get into the Ubisoft is a lol company.
Those licensing constraints. Well, it turns out that all of the cars in the game were licensed from the car companies.
Very normal.
And a 10-year running game likely means that they had licensed to them for 10.
But also, as much as I'm the don't you dare increase government guy, I don't care. I don't care that your stupid business process decided, licensing the likeness of all of these expensive cars in perpetuity for each copy of games sold. That's going to be expensive. Okay, Ford, for the Mustang GT, can we only license the likeness for a period of 10 years? How much cheaper is that? You're going to knock a zero off? Oh, thank goodness. Except I need to do all of that with a French accent. The consumer does not care. I bought this copy of the game. And even though it didn't come on a physical disc, I bought this copy of the game. The fact that you screwed up your licensing and now the thing that I bought included a non-transferable limited time license to the likeness of the thing. I'm sorry that you only licensed to me the ability to smell the whiffs of the eau de cologne for 10 years instead of buying a bottle of the cologne. Lol.
10 years. And that means that it would likely reopen for negotiation. Now understand that's speculative.
This I think any competent consumer protections, which we may not have. Any competent consumer protections, the consumers should be able to go to Ubisoft and go, no, I bought this copy of the game. What do you mean you had to patch out the licensed cars? There's also apparently a GTA. Once again, one of the other videos that I watched. There was a GTA where after an amount of time they issued a patch to take out the copyrighted music because they only licensed the rap songs or whatever for a period of like 8 or 10 years or something. I don't care that you fucked up your licensing. I bought this disc. The song is on that disc. What do you mean I no longer have a license to the thing that is on the disc? Ridiculous. Consumer protections should already protect against this.
But I've seen
and
this
I think
type
they
of deal
do.
many
I think
times
you could
in the
take
industry.
this to court, but also I'm not a lawyer.
So it's not unlikely. If you're going to have to renegotiate on a game that has so few players and is not turning a profit anymore, you're probably just going to forego the renegotiation. Yeah. And if those servers are aging,
you're right.
You're not going to want to
But also, the Consumer Protection Agency of whatever country you're in should have the interest of the consumer in mind to go, whoa. You sold someone something and then 10 years later went, nope, because it would be more expensive otherwise. What? No. No, you should pay fines for that.
Create that infrastructure.
That would be like if you were building a house and then you used the wrong construction materials. You used cheaper construction materials because it was cheaper. Yeah, I know that we were supposed to build it right, but also it was cheaper to build it this way. So I'm sorry that your foundation is cracking and your walls are bowing. But also, we got our bag. Bye. No, that's not how this works. There should already the consumer protection law is already in place. I'm pretty sure you have a good enough case to take this to court.
And there are some people that'll say, well, just make it all single player. Well, I've explained that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single.
To those people who say, well, just make it single player, you're very obviously not programmers. This is why the initiative is, no, you make the server binary available. Hello? That's the easiest way. Duh.
Single player, you'd have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. When you already have
once again, we're into the strawman territory of like, oh, you have to spend dev time at the end of life in order to get the multiplayer game to be single player. No one's arguing for that. What I think is being argued for is you make server.exe part of the thing that you get when you install from Steam, which many games already do. If I read the initiative correct, all that they want is that when you shut down the service, final patch is released that includes server.exe as part of the thing. I don't like that. I don't think that goes far enough. But I think that's what Stop Killing Games is asking for.
Goes out and the game has basically no players left anyway. It makes more sense to just move on. I don't find that to be a problem from the developer perspective, and I understand that people find that to be a problem from the player perspective. These are two different ideologies, and
Weirdo.
That's okay to have two different ideologies.
Yeah.
I just won't agree with it because I understand the burden that puts if we raise that problem in the way that we are right now.
I agree. If your straw man that you proposed was the case, then yes, that would be more work on the developer.
You try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them. And we're going to miss out on adventures like Final Fantasy XIV. And even though I don't play anymore, League of Legends or any other live...
This take is wild to me. No, they're not going to develop Final Fantasy XIV because when they shut down Final Fantasy XIV, they'll have to make server.exe available. I'm sorry. How much money has Final Fantasy XIV made Square Enix? Okay. However much money that is, because I'm not going to Google it, because it's going to be a hilarious number. 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, 100 years down the road, when Square Enix is finally, okay, there's literally only 12 players playing Final Fantasy XIV, we're going to kill it. What's the damage in just, here you go, here's server.exe, you go have fun. We're on Final Fantasy 36, and that's the new MMO. Come play. Why would you suggest that, like, okay, 30 years down the line when they're finally shutting down Final Fantasy XIV, now they have to expend dev effort to make it a single player game, to integrate the server into client.exe so that you can have a single player experience of the MMO? No, that's not what I'm asking for. That's not games preservation. No, games preservation wants to be able to recreate what it was, not create a new, different Final Fantasy XIV, the single player experience. And I still don't know if that's what the Stop Killing Games initiative actually is asking
live service
for.
Game. Any of them. You're talking everything, like even phone games, as funny as that is. A lot of people don't realize that phone games require online-only activity. What about things like Pokemon Go? Mm-hmm. What about stuff like Monster Hunter Now?
Publish server.exe.
We'd never get in.
when Pokemon Go shuts down, I want server.exe so that I can go and get all of the gyms, so that I can go and man in the middle your payment service so that I can get everything for free. Okay? I want to experience what that game had now that you're no longer interested in the $4 microtransactions. Why wouldn't you? You're shutting it down. It's not worth anything to you. You're not going in the future, even if it's 10 years, if it's just 10 years from now. When Niantic goes, okay, this Pokemon Go thing is officially over. We're done with it now. You're done with it.
Any of them. And that's why I think this needs to not be vague. It needs to be specific
this,
about
though,
the
is
business
correct.
practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies that are...
You need to crystallize the thing that you are asking for so hard that through this lobbyist process, you still get your idea or the thing dies. You don't want some Frankenstein's monster version of this to come to the floor and get passed by politicians who've been paid off by the industry lobbyists that came in and massaged it to make it agreeable to all parties. No. That's why I say the crystallization of my idea is when you stop selling the thing, it must become public domain. And this, I think, should be rewritten as when you shut down your service, we get server.exe.
They're doing this
and
under the guise of it being
way.
a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem. So now we're going to go to Ross, otherwise known as Accursed Farms, the creator of this initiative, and one of the ones that's pushing it the most online. I'm going to let him say exactly why he thinks that this will go through very easily and why it is important, and then I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with it.
Comes law in the EU? Yeah, it might be. Now, it's not a guarantee, but I think if we get the signatures, this passes. Why do I say that?
What? Lol, Europeans.
Well, it's a few factors. Politicians like easy wins.
No, they don't.
And this doesn't require them to do much at all. And unless it involves gambling or protecting children, politicians generally don't care about video games. So this isn't of big consequence to them or most of their constituency.
So what will get it introduced to the floor? Why will they care at all? If they don't care, what will get them to move on it? Politicians don't move on things they don't care about. You have to remember that in the EU, there are people from every country in the European Union with, whatever. So you, a Frenchman or whatever, think that this is very important to me. And the people from... Can I pick a non-controversial other EU country? Greece. Here we go. And someone from Greece goes, no. And they get enough of a coalition to just go, no. Why are we wasting time on this? Let's bring it to a vote. All right, everyone, no. If politicians don't care about it, then you just get no votes. I don't see why this would... I do not see why this would pass into a law. I don't understand it. I'm going to vote no. They haven't paid me off. I do not see the value in my bank account.
I'm going to stop it there for a moment. The assertion that politicians just like easy wins, so this legislation will go through, but the politicians don't care about a multi-billion-dollar global industry and that it doesn't matter to their constituencies is incredibly absurd.
By the way, their constituency includes the video game companies, as I've already said.
Absurd to me. I don't think this is the right direction at all for a movement like this. I think it's incredibly damaging, and it makes our entire industry look bad, both on the player side and the developer side. If we're going to be putting forward anything that may eventually turn into legislation, it should be passing because it's the right thing to do for consumers and developers.
Totally agree.
And that there's some kind of a middle ground, not just because it's an easy win and politicians don't care. This sets us off on a completely wrong foot.
Very
EU
agree.
law is already unclear on a lot of this practice.
I think he's
Anyway.
going to say the thing.
And that's dangerous. If we're going to be setting precedent, which could change the way that law works all the way down the road, then we need to be...
Okay, once again, this may be an EU-US split. We're very concerned about what the precedent that this is setting, because once again, our politicians don't actually write the laws. They just get the stack of paper that's handed to them over the dinner that the lobbyists are paying for. They maybe get some lobster bisque on the paper. Oh no, can you send me can you send my assistant the digital, I think it's called a PDI or something, I don't know. And then they just go, this is a bill that will protect the children. And then they go, protecting children. I have also been paying $17 million. Yes, we vote yes on this. And then years later, that goes to the courts when a state sues a company, or a company sues a company, or the federal government sues a company, or a company says this is illegal, and they have to work their way all the way up to all the way up to the state court, the federal court, and then they get it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reads it and goes, yes, this bill was written terribly. It's Swiss cheese of cutouts. And I think you win this case in this very specific instance for this very specific way. And then as we get things moving through the courts, we actually find out what the bill means. This is why Nancy Pelosi said we had to pass it, but in order to find out what's in it. So that's how the US works. And dear the EU, if you think that your politicians are writing these laws when you're already admitting that, so after the initiative stage, the politicians and the lobbyists get together and make a law, or make a law that we'll vote on that reflects what the initial proposal definitely meant, you're hilarious and also terribly misguided.
Be sending the right message, which this is sending a vague message that doesn't cover the actual problem. So this is not a win to me. This is a huge risk.
And we would be making it easy for them to settle it. It falls in line with other consumer...
How? Your language is terrifyingly vague. What do you mean this is going to be easy to settle? What that means is the video game lobby is going to come in and go, okay, no, we understand what they're saying. Let's massage this to make this agreeable to all parties. Here you go. Here's the law. And then they go, if there isn't that the majority, the minority, the enough of the MEP, the member of European Parliament, that's the one. If there's enough MEPs to go, no. You get a video game bill passed that benefits the video game industry? Wow.
Consumer
Amazing.
practices. You know how when you buy something, you're generally allowed to keep it?
Now this
in
is
the
the one
case
thing
of
I
live
agree
service
with.
games, in the terms of service for those, you are not buying the...
Yeah, but once again, there's no consumer agreement that this is what's happening here. That when I buy a thing, I'm actually getting a license to use that's non-transferable and ephemeral, and you only get... No consumer understands that. You go to Steam, the button says buy, and you expect that you buy it. Even though it's all digital bits delivered over the internet, we still think that it's like a CD, and you get that CD, and you now own that copy of the music on the CD, the video game on the CD, whatever. And this argument from Thor, they're like, no, it's actually licensing. This is a neat legal trick that's happened over the last 30, 40 years,
game.
and
You're
no
buying a
consumer
license
buys
to
it.
the game. And that's the part that's
That's a pun.
really different here. If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
And I agree with this take, but also this is where this initiative goes off / goes wrong, is because these people who don't like live service games and probably aren't buying live service games are trying to get a law passed that would affect the people who do like live service games and will buy live service games.
But if we're under this weird idea that we need to get rid of all live service games or damage that practice in any way to keep in line with consumer policies, it is in line with consumer policies. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be there in the first place. So this doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. You're not buying the game, you're buying a license to the game. In the niche cases,
I come so close to agreeing, and then it's like, what, you threw in a weird one.
Where a studio is trying to sell a game as if you are buying it or purchasing it or using that language specifically, and they give you a live service game instead, I agree that should change. That language should change. You are not purchasing the game. You are not buying the game. You are paying to have a license
it sure
to
seems
a
like
live
I
service
am.
experience. I get that.
Does
is
the
that
button
what this
say
is
buy?
doing, though? The initiative is not trying to call that out specifically. It's trying to say that all games need to stay in a functional, playable state, which is not calling out the language that is being used to manipulate the player. Call that out specifically, not this vague bullshit.
And finally, this is a diversion from really serious topics that politicians would prefer not to deal with.
That's really gross.
Apparently, a lot of people did not like the word gross, but I'm going to back Thor on this. It's gross. If you're going to say, hello, I would like you to pass a law about a thing that isn't a serious topic, I'm literally just diverting you from working on serious topics. What is making you think that this is ever going to make it to the lobbyist phase? You're crazy. No. Hello, here's story time with Zeke. When I was in 6th grade, we went to Young Ameritown, which is a neat little, like, you as students get to run a town for a day to learn about the American experience. And as part of this Young Ameritown experience, in the weeks leading up to it, we held elections for mayor, and all of the people who wanted to run for mayor stood up in a line, and then we all went up to the front of the classroom and we stood at the podium and we made our pitch for why you should vote for us for mayor. And a lot of us that stood up and wanted to be mayor, because mayor was going to be a cool job. You got paid the highest, and you had all kind, you could make laws, or I think, or something silly like that. A lot of us went, I may not be the best candidate, but I'm here to offer you free juice at lunch, or something dumb like that. And then what actually happened was the person who said, no, you don't understand. I'm here to be mayor. I'm going to be fair. I'm the best candidate because I'm agreeable to all parties. I will listen and I will listen to all of the interested parties and be fair in my rulings. And after that, it was a landslide. Everyone voted for that person. And then our teacher tells us, okay, what have we learned here? When you're trying to pitch yourself to people, you don't pitch yourself as not the best. You always pitch yourself as, this is serious. This is important. Don't go, this may not be the most important thing that you want to deal with, because in everyone's mental backlog, it drops down in priority. Oh, this isn't the most important thing? Well, we somehow haven't actually finished dealing with child trafficking. Well, we somehow actually haven't finished dealing with, like, world hunger. Well, we somehow haven't actually finished dealing with, anything that's actually important. So why would this thing that will upfront admit this is a diversion from serious topics, how is that ever going to make it to the top of someone's stack? No, this Stop Killing Games initiative is just for lulz. It's never going to go anywhere. And I'm going to back Thor up on calling it gross. No, games preservation is a serious topic. It's worth debating. It's worth being brought up.
To me as well. The idea...
But also, Thor's wrong, because he's like, oh, games preservation isn't that important. It's an online game, and online games are an ephemeral experience that... Just like the dandelion seed, it is beautiful for a week, and then it turns from yellow into dandelion seeds, and they are blown by the wind, and then it's gone, and you never experience it again. No, that's bullshit.
That this is just a diversion from serious topics and they can get an easy win in and we can just push it through and there won't be a lot of pushback on it and they're not going to have to think about it too hard, that's crazy dangerous, dude. If you're going to be setting precedent, if you're going to be putting forward something that you want to start a conversation to eventually become legislation, and these are the reasons for it, not only can I not agree with the initiative, but I can't agree with you. And I think that the tactics that you're using here are really disgusting. So yes, I won't agree with that.
Yep.
And I won't agree with Ross. There's no way around that. I think this is gross. To sum it all up, no, I will not be supporting the initiative Stop Killing Games.
How are there 3
You're not
minutes
going to
left?
change my
Oh
mind on it
gosh.
because I find this language to be incredibly vague
I keep
and
on pausing
damaging
it.
to the rest of our industry. I think that it will be bad for both developers and players down the line in the way that it is currently written. And I think that starting a conversation that doesn't get to the core of the issue is both wasted time and leads to potentially bad outcomes. So,
you know how you go to a meeting and you're just like, why am I in this meeting? What are we deciding in this meeting? Is this meeting deciding anything? Is this actually just a share out? Hold on. Is my time being wasted here? This meeting could have been an email. This is the equivalent of that. Wait, this isn't an important issue? You're literally diverting me about like... So on this front page, there's this game that was apparently big deal. It had 12 million players or something, and then it got shut down, and we're calling it destroyed. And I don't get it. Can we focus on the homelessness problem now? Okay, cool. Wild.
if we want to talk about this, let's talk about the actual bad business practices. In the case that a studio is making a live service game,
I don't know that government can fix bad business practices. I think that the long history of history shows that government is incapable of stopping bad business practices. So I don't know that that's where the conversation needs to go. I think that we need to better enshrine history and preservation.
and they sell it to you as a product. They say that you are purchasing the game or you are buying the game, when in reality you're actually purchasing or buying a license to that game. I think that we should be fighting about that. That needs to go away.
I'll agree with that.
Should be well informed at the point of purchase that they are purchasing a license, not buying
Sure.
a game. And the reason that we have those licenses
Sure. Yeah. We could change we could change the entire discussion about if you're buying a service or if you're buying a thing. Are you buying a can of bug spray or are you paying for a service to come and spray bug spray? Because if there's only one charge and the guy's like, okay, here's your bottle of bug spray, then it sure seems like I'm buying a bottle of bug spray. But if I try to spray that bug spray and the guy comes back and goes, no, you give me that. You bought a bug spray service, sir. This analogy has gone far afield, but
in the case of client-server interactions, like we had before, we're talking about client-server games, is so that they can ban you when you cheated them. They were
hot take. We're gonna. I don't think that a company should be allowed to take away the service that you have paid for. I don't think that that's allowed. So yeah, if you're a griefer in a video game, I don't think it should be allowed that you should be banned from a video game. Sure, don't let griefers and botters and whatnot play in the pool with the normal players. Give them a separate area. But if they paid for your video game, I think that they should be allowed to own the video game. To own their copy of the video game. That's my own hot take there.
revoke your license. That's why they revoke your license, to protect the gameplay of every other player that you're impacting when you cheat at these games. That needs to exist, but it needs to be better informed to the player at time of purchase. So I agree on that. This doesn't bring that up, though. It just attacks all video games that have online-only components and says that they need to keep being able to be played indefinitely. That doesn't make any sense to me. Aside from that, a lot of people really like live service games.
Yeah.
As they exist now.
They
so
sure
trying
do.
to kill off all live service games, as some people
I don't
have said
think that's
online,
what's
doesn't
they're
make any
trying to
sense
do.
either. Live service games are a great way to get away from the real world. They are
as opposed to / different from other games. I think that all games are a great way to get away from the troubles of the real world, except for the ones that are trying to be a real world simulation. But even those are an escape because you don't actually have to deal with the real world.
About social interaction between players. Some people get married in them. Some people met their spouse in them and then got married in them. It's a really cool thing for a point in time in which you're having that social.
God, I hate this argument so much, but it's mostly because I'm a former thespian and I hate the fart sniffing from all of the stage performances. Oh no, it's the stage performance is an ephemeral thing. We perform it, and every night it is different. To commit it to film and to freeze it in this one moment in time, freeze this one moment in time in perpetuity for anyone to watch in their bathtub. Oh, the humanity of it. No, it's fine. It's a different experience, but it's fine.
Experience, and to destroy that just because you don't like them is very weird. I don't think that makes
a lot of sense. I don't think it would destroy. I also don't think it makes sense
the way that Ross is posing.
Companies are already taking on the burden of creating a live service experience, because live services already have a burden. You have to maintain a server. You have to guard against bots and exploits and attacks, and people are trying to take down your service. Why? For the lulz, as I've already said. Having this extra but when you stop when you stop selling the game, when the game stops being available, publish server.exe so that the community can keep on playing. Crazy pants.
This is why it's going to pass. I think that's incredibly inflammatory and could lead to a lot of damage to both what he's trying to stop and to got married in them. It's a really cool thing for a point in time in which you're having that social experience. And to destroy that just because you don't like them is very weird. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. I also don't think it makes sense the way that Ross is posing this is why it's going to pass. I think that's incredibly inflammatory and could lead to a lot of damage to both what he's trying to stop and to games as a whole. To say that the government just doesn't care and this is an easy win and we're going to get it through is disingenuous. You're talking about a multi-billion-dollar...
Is it disingenuous? If Ross genuinely thinks that video games don't care, that's not disingenuous. But I will posit the fact that he bought a domain, stopkillinggames.com, and he has created this website and he's put all of these words there. I don't think that he thinks that games aren't worth it and that it's not a serious issue. I think he's just bad at intellectual at putting forth his ideas. He might even just have a well-sized amygdala going, look, I know that it's video games and it's not sex trafficking or human trafficking or homelessness or world hunger, but also video games are important. And that might be what he's trying to pitch, but also don't pitch it that way.
Global industry. To think that the government isn't going to be meticulously looking through this and looking for flaws and holes is absurd. So I don't think that's honest at all, and I find it disgusting. So for everyone who's mad about that, fine. Be angry about it.
Okay.
I'm not going to change my stance on that because I can't agree with this, both as a dev and a player. I see the danger involved. I see the vagueness.
You say both as a dev and as a player, but also you're mostly coming at it as a dev. Because every time that someone brings up, licensing, you roll over and go, yo, you're right. You're right. It's because of licensing. Oh, yeah. Well, Ubisoft only licensed the likeness of the cars for 10 years. So, dear consumer, fuck you. There's no possible way that you could keep on looking at those cars in the game for more than 10 years because we only bought the license for 10 years. And if we had bought an in perpetuity license to look at the pixels in the video game, we would have had to charge you $120, maybe like $160. That's not my problem. That's not my problem. If you should have actually made the video game $160 and see how well that sells. That's not my problem that you put out a $60 video game with a hidden 10-year license to look at the pixels. I'm pretty sure I bought a game that like I could print out the bits on paper. Like they're there.
In the language, and it doesn't make sense to me. If we want to fight for better conditions for players, then fight the actual problem.
I like this.
Don't make new ones.
Correct. So, I think I have made my position very clear. And yeah, I wanted to respond to this weird straw manning that I think Mr. Pirate Software Thor might be doing, but also it's probably not in bad faith. But also, I don't think that either of them are going far enough. I don't think that this solves the problem. So, I'm going to cut off the recording.